This content is on bar graphs and histograms, how to display data graphically. You'll see here that a bar graph is just a display of categorical data with values as horizontal or vertical bars. And recall that categorical data is the same as nominal data, or variables with values that differ only by name. And you can see here that when we have the values, in this case 1, 2, 3, or this could be, let's say, freshman, sophomore, junior, something like that, or this could be cat, dog, horse. Those are our values, and they go along the x-axis if you have vertical bars, and the frequencies go along the y-axis. Or if you have horizontal bars, those are just reversed, then we put the categories or values here and the frequencies going along the bottom. Note that two display orientations are possible. We can have the vertical orientation or the horizontal orientation. I said those in reverse, the vertical orientation here or the horizontal over here. And notice this, because this becomes important in distinguishing a bar chart from a histogram, we have space between the bars. Because these are entirely separate categories, we keep the bars entirely separate by space. So again, bar graphs are used for nominal variables, and there's a space between the bars. A histogram is what we're going to be working with most in our class. Histograms are used for continuous data, or data that is quantitative and that has ranges like this. This temperature could be anywhere in between. It looks very much like a bar chart, but you'll notice a couple of differences. The main one is that there are no gaps between the bars. That's because there are no gaps between the data. These separation points are arbitrary. So it means that they don't really mean anything. They're just intervals that were chosen to display the data, but the data really didn't have any inherent gaps at those places, so we have no gaps between the bars. And again, the data have to be numeric, at least quantitative, and very often continuous. So continuous are the best variables for displaying in a histogram. And we'll be paying a lot of attention in this chapter to the shape of the histogram, because that's very important to the work we'll be doing in this class. So the question here is, will you use a bar graph or a histogram? Here's the first question. A survey was taken of 10 random people who left their home before 7:00 a.m. to see how many cups of coffee they drank in a typical morning. Their answers were as follows, and you can see here 1 cup, 3 cups, 2 cups, and so on. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I could go either way on this because we're going to have numbers 1, 3, 2, and so forth. Those are the values. But in this case, I've added the word cups, and I want to suggest that these discrete variables you would likely indicate more as a bar chart, as if this many people had 1, this many had 2, this many had 3, and so forth. You could go either way on these, and I probably wouldn't ask you this question. However, when we display these data graphically, we'll be using a bar chart function to show what these look like. The students in Selena's first grade class, this is another problem we worked with, they chose their favorite subjects. What would we display our data in? Histogram or bar chart? And in this case, the data are nominal, so the answer is very clear. We would use a bar chart. All right. In this case, the answer wasn't as clear. We could use either, depending on how you're going to analyze the data. And finally, level of confidence in your ability to do very well in the statistics on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 equals very low confidence and 10 equals very high confidence. And in this case, your values, your variable is confidence, And your values are 1, 2, 3, ... up to 10. And we would want to display this as likely as a histogram. And that's because we can do some calculations with these data. And so we can consider this to be more suitable for a histogram. The way to make a histogram is you first make your frequency table and you decide whether to use intervals depending on how many values you have. Then you're going to draw an x-axis as a horizontal line near the bottom of the graph area and your y-axis as a vertical line. You'll ideally want your histogram to be about square-shaped, so when you draw your axes, you want them to be kind of equal, like this. This vertical axis can be a little bit shorter. And you're going to want to have your values or your grouped intervals on the bottom, and you're going to want to have your frequencies over on the side, just like making a bar chart. Then you'll indicate your values or your intervals down here, and you'll mark your frequencies here, and you'll end up with a distribution that can have a shape. So then we'll draw bars showing frequency for each value. We could do that by simply drawing the bars around these and coloring in the appropriate region. So we'll do some examples. So first off, you'll recall this example we just looked at where we had indications of favorite subjects. We decided that we needed a bar chart for this, which again is going to look much like a histogram. So let's draw out our y-axis and draw out our x-axis. What we have here are reading, math, science, gym, music, and art. We can now put these frequencies. Our biggest frequency is 6, so we can label from 1 to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll mark the 6 here, the 4, the 2, 1, 3, 5. And now we know that the bar for reading is going to go all the way up to the 6. The bar for math will be up to the 3. Notice that I'm separating the bars. The bar for science would also be up to the 3. For gym, we would go up to the 6 again. For music, we'd be going up to the 3 again. And for art, we'd be going up to the 4. We would want to give our graph a title. So I would give it this title. I would give it a number, chart 1, and I would put bar chart of favorite subjects of first grade. I'll just write graders. If we were asked to describe it, we could say that the greatest number of students had gym and reading as their favorite subjects. Equal proportions had each. That art was next, and that equal numbers of students preferred math, science, and music. Next, we're going to demonstrate a grouped frequency table using a histogram. This is the groupings that we made in our previous class, and now we're going to illustrate these with a histogram. So once again, let's start with our axes. Here across the bottom, we'll put the x-axis where the values will go. Up on the side, we'll put the y-axis where the frequencies will go. Let's write in the values. I'll angle them again for the sake of space. 1 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, 81 to 100, and greater than 100. So these are the intervals we'll be using for our histogram. Our frequencies range from 1 to 7, so we'll put a 1 here and a 7 up here. We'll put our 4 in the middle, and 6, 5, 3, 2. Ideally, these should be nicely spaced equal intervals. We did pretty well with that. So our first frequency for 1 to 20, we have 4. So the bar will go up to here. And in this case, I'll leave just a little space here, but I'm not going to leave any more spaces after this. Okay, because these are continuous numbers, and so we have continuous bars. 21 to 40, we had 7, so I'll make this bar touching. 41 to 60, we had 2. 61 to 80, we had 4. You can see that I haven't spaced my bars quite perfectly. 81 to 100, we had 1. And even though my bars are not quite spaced perfectly, I'm not going to make them any bigger. I would be more likely to adjust my categories. And more than 100, we had 1. And so we could color all this in to make it look very nice. And to show that these data are continuous, we would use the same markings for each bar because these are not distinct categories. So if you decide to color them in, they should all be the same color. We would again give it a title. I would say again, giving it a number. In this case, it's chart 2, and I'm going to write histogram depicting miles from grocery store with vegetables. If we were to describe the shape of this, we would be electing to draw a continuous line across the top of it that kind of touches or comes close to touching each bar. And this shape line that we've just emphasized will end up having some importance later on.